After spending several minutes in thought, Danny regained consciousness after being brought to the attention of the therapist. She asks him to remember the traumatic reason he's here, and Danny begins telling him how he lost his daughter. He took Minnie to the park and she only distracted her for a split second while Minnie was having fun. This was enough for her to make Minnie disappear without a trace. Danny becomes suspicious of a man named Lyle who was watching his children that day and manages to arrest him. But Lyle's lawyers have pleaded not guilty on the grounds of intellectual disability, claiming Lyle can't remember what happened or where Minnie was. Years later, Danny's wife left him, but he never moved on. After the therapy session, Danny looks at pictures of Minnie and her blonde white wife, Vivian, before meeting up with her partner Nix. After receiving an anonymous tip warning of an impending robbery, they head to the local bank together. Nix explained that he had also been robbed before at 2 other branches of the same bank, but each time only a particular safe deposit box was robbed, even though he didn't have the money. Upon arrival, the 2 investigators accompanied the surveillance team into a truck to observe the crime scene in front of the bank. They soon notice a man named Delrain who looks familiar to Danny. He was sitting next to a woman on a bench, and when Delrain said it was very hot today, the woman started walking away, actually repeating the same thing. Delrain then consulted a police officer in front of the bank and let it pass without any problems. Danny realizes Delrain has an accomplice and immediately goes after him. Once inside, an employee tries to stop him, so Danny secretly steals the key and pretends to open the safe. He is then taken to a warehouse where the man realizes he has lost the key and goes to find it, giving Danny the chance to use the key to open a locker stolen from the other branch. To his surprise, he found a photograph of his daughter and a handwritten note instructing him to find Lev Dillon. On the other hand, the woman outside kept complaining that she was hot, and she didn't stop at the traffic light and took off her clothes and walked around, causing an accident in which several cars collided and blocked the road. At that moment, Delrain walks into the bank and with just one word makes his receptionist decide it's closed for the day. All of a sudden, all the policemen broke into the front door and threatened to force everyone to flee while the receptionist used the same locker. Danny pulls out her gun and tells her to stop, but Danny seems to keep walking, not even realizing Danny is there. They quickly join the cops and shoot Danny, who thankfully was wearing a bulletproof vest. They then escort a woman with her box out of the bank, board an armored truck, and find the road blocked, only to find the woman suffering from an imaginary fever. Her receptionist, trying to avoid her, eventually crashed into a truck and she died instantly from her injuries. Upon approaching the crash site, Delrain grabbed the box and handed the bomb to the woman before leaving. When Danny finally catches up, the bomb goes off and all the evidence is covered up. Danny notices Delrain fleeing and he immediately begins chasing him. They enter an old building and Danny is startled by a sudden noise, but it was only his colleague. The 3 go upstairs and find Delrain on the roof, but when he says he's the wrong person, the 2 detectives point their guns at Danny. Delrain also mentions Lyle, implying that he knows something about Minnie. Danny retrieves her photo and demands her answer, and Delrain eventually finds the box empty and Nix arrives with backup. When Delrain is cornered, she tells the detectives to clean up after her before jumping off. The 2 detectives shoot at each other, and when Danny looks down the street, Delrain is gone. Nix then tells Danny that only 1 guard survived, and he, like Lyle, claims to remember nothing. That night, while Danny is watching the footage, Nix calls him and tells him that he tracked down an anonymous caller and gave him his address. Danny goes to the place and meets Diana, a psychic who is now working with a tall and strong man. The man goes outside to wait on his bicycle while Danny asks some questions, but Diana refuses to answer and she asks Danny to go away, who is clearly scared of something. At that moment, someone outside approaches the tall man, and suddenly he rides his bicycle across the store trying to kill Diana and Danny. They narrowly get out of her way, and the man, realizing he couldn't kill her, uses her rubble to finish himself off. Diana is also in danger, so Danny takes her to the police station where she confesses everything. It turns out that Delrain is a hypnotist and has supernatural powers that allow him to control people's minds. Diana has equal powers, and she and Delrain once belonged to a secret agency called the Division, established by the US government. The program was designed to train people with psychic powers, initially pretending to help them, but later revealed that they wanted to use it for conflict and politics. When Danny doesn't believe, Diana takes control of Nix and makes him sit, cry, and go out for a cigarette just by talking to him. Her story further explains how Delrain ended up becoming a villain despite possessing the most powerful hypnotic powers. The department tried to stop him, and Diana was also one of the agents who fought him, but Delrain escaped anyway, so Diana quit and started her new life to stay in hiding. When she heard on the news that she had read about the robbery and no one remembered anything, she knew Delrain was behind it. Meanwhile, Delrain finds Nix outside and uses force on him. Suddenly, Nix bursts into the store and attempts to shoot Danny and Diana dead. He doesn't want to answer with reason, so Danny has to shoot him in the leg to stop him. Nix still attacks him and starts a fight, in which Danny fights him until he manages to handcuff him to the bars of the cell. However, Nick is still under the influence of Delrain's powers and cannot stop his efforts until he carries out his orders. He scrambled into the handcuffs and injured his wrist. His pain continues and he manages to escape, but Diana interrupts and shoots him in the head first. Danny is furious, but Diana explains that Nix is going to die anyway, so he will be released. Unable to explain Nix's death, Danny and Diana run out of town while their face as a fugitive makes the news. At the diner, Danny finally admits to believing Lyle when Lyle says he can't remember anything and that Delrain was apparently behind Minnie's disappearance. Just then, her local sheriff walks in and notices her, but before he can pull out her gun, Diana uses her own ability to call the guards on her sheriff, had her say she saw fugitives fleeing. She also makes him pay for all expenses. As Danny and Diana were about to leave, the sheriff received a message over the radio. It was a message coming to them from Delrain. As soon as they come out, Delrain and two police officers are waiting for them. Danny tells Diana to run away while distracting her, and she runs onto the railroad tracks and carefully hides behind a passing train, away from the men who are now looking for her. After sneaking around, Danny suddenly turns and is shocked to see the landscape in front of him. A sudden noise is heard behind them, and Delrain and the police flee, but the scenery returns to normal, revealing that this was also a trick of Delrain's mind. When the police try to shoot him dead, she is suddenly run over by a truck, but she turns out to be Diana. The two escape in a car together and head to Mexico. Diana explains that hypnosis allows her to see whatever she wants to see as long as she doesn't have a mental block, and Diana tells Danny that Danny somehow has a very powerful block, so she uses her powers against him. I believe it may not be used for, but Delrain seems to be able to do it. Later, when they reach the border, guards try to stop them, but Diana uses her powers to trick a man into letting them through. Finally, they visit Jeremiah, who once worked for Division. He has no powers, but he has very strong blocks that only Delrain can break through. When they knock on the door, Jeremiah gets the cleaning lady to open it, but immediately becomes suspicious when Danny comes in alone and pulls out his gun. At that moment, the cleaning lady also takes out a gun, which turns out to be Diana. She used her own abilities to create her illusions around herself, making her other women look around in closets to hide. When they ask Jeremiah about Delrain, Delrain explains that he's after something called Project Domino. This is a powerful weapon developed by Division that has the ability to control people's minds in any situation, even those who are highly resistant to hypnosis. Delrain stole the dominoes and hid them in an undisclosed location. To protect his secret, he erased his memory, leaving only secret clues that could trigger him in case he needed to be reminded. The Division captured him shortly afterwards, but 6 weeks ago something awakened his memory and he escaped. Now he searches for further clues to remember the dominoes' location, and Jeremiah suspects the trigger may be in one of the bank's safe deposit boxes. When Danny confesses that he found a picture of Minnie in her box, Jeremiah asks to see it, much to Diana's immediate suspicions. Jeremiah reveals that he is Delrain in a psychic disguise and shoots her. Danny and Diana run away and try to hide in the crowd on the street. Some men suddenly turn against them, apparently being under Delrain's powers too, so Danny shoots his gun in the air to make the civilians run away. After pushing a few men off, Diana and Danny run to another street, where they shoot at a driver's helmet to make him fall off his bike. Then they steal the bike and begin driving very fast through town, pushing away any new person that tries to stop them. Suddenly the landscape begins folding again and Danny feels confused, but Diana reminds him it isn't real and he keeps going, causing a truck to get off the road and crash. The building it hit begins crumbling above them, so the duo drops the bike and runs away, only to find themselves cornered in a blocked alley. Delrain arrives with a group of police officers under his command and uses his powers to try to capture them. However, Danny remembers the words Diana told him about the blockade, focusing his mind and igniting his willpower, ending abruptly with the police turning against Delrain. When the police take him in, Danny panics as he has never had powers before, but apparently has been trained to control them, and Diana concludes that his memory must have been erased. Where? They then visit River, another friend of Diana's. He has exceptional hacking skills and has built a network for the Division. River searches his computer and finds Danny's naval and police records, but there is no mention of the woman. Upon further investigation by River, Danny is shocked to learn that his ex-wife, Vivian, is also a member of Division. Your location is encrypted and it takes River hours to decipher it. Danny and Diana rest in another room, and Danny tells Vivian his story. They fell in love in their school days, got married and built a family, but their relationship completely collapsed when Minnie was kidnapped. Danny thinks Vivian lied about her job, but her pain was real. Later, while Diana is in the shower, Danny receives a call from an unknown number named Delrain. He uses his powers against Danny to hurt Diana, and Danny tries with all his might to resist them while hanging up. However, there are still traces of the force in his head, and Danny hits the table before looking for Diana, only to discover that he was holding the scissors the whole time and was unaware of it. He taped them to the wall and tried to leave, but when Diana came out to check on him, Danny looked again and realized the scissors were still in his hand. He picks her up in an attempt to fight her urge to attack her, but Diana sees his reflection in her mirror and quickly turns around and kisses him, overcoming her urge. Helpful distraction. The two spend a tumultuous time together and eventually fall asleep, but Danny is awakened by nightmares about family memories and Diana somehow ends up becoming Vivian. Danny then sneaks into another room where River is sleeping. While using the computer, Danny is shocked to discover that Diana has the name Vivian within the system and she still works in the department. It turns out that Danny's memory has been altered. Diana was his real wife all along, but every time she looked at the picture, she saw a blonde instead of her. Danny looks up Minnie's profile and is shocked to discover that she is Domino. Her abilities are very good as she is the daughter of 2 powerful hypnotists. At that moment, Diana wakes up and tells Danny what happened to her. She and Danny were both part of the department, and upon learning of Minnie's powers, her organization took her away and sought to train her to be the most powerful hypnotist in the world. Diana agreed to the plan, but Danny refused to provide such a child to the government. It was he who kidnapped her Minnie, but he then erased her memory of himself to protect her. Danny begins to remember his plan, explaining that he wanted to protect Minnie from everyone in the room, and reveals that he's finally realized this isn't real. River's room suddenly disappears, and Danny is hallucinating and finds himself at the division base trying to find out where Minnie is. His life as a police officer is a lot. Everything he's lived through since seeing his therapist is part of the department's plan to remind him of Minnie's whereabouts. Diana, Nix, Fake Vivian, River, Therapist, and Banks are all division members who have played their part. Delrain is also there, holding the photo and explaining that the words written on it are the key to finding Minnie. They've been trying to remind Danny for 4 years, but every time they get close enough, Danny finds out and breaks the illusion, so they have to start over. Still refusing to cooperate, Danny flees outside, where he finds all the sets they have built to make the illusion more real. Department agents quickly surrounded him and verbally abused him until he was knocked unconscious. Shortly after, Danny wakes up in her lab and Diana tells him that her love for him is real, but Danny still insults her. Diana and the others give up and connect Danny to a machine to reset his memory so that he can only say "I don't understand" when questioned. When I woke up, I think Danny was back in the therapist's office. Same as last time, even with the same words, a new fantasy begins. In real life, while Danny is at work, the department monitors his vitals and agents perform their respective roles on set. However, when Danny takes the wrong elevator and looks at his phone, he sees a picture of Diana's bare face. This means Danny's block is finally strong enough to stop the reset. For now, Danny pretends to play along. Nix picks him up and they go to the bank where they are part of the set. While watching surveillance footage, Danny pretends to make notes about the incident in his notebook. Like last time, he gets out of the truck and enters the bank, but as the department is distracted waiting for him to go through the door, Danny suddenly disappears. While all the agents are searching for him, Danny steals a van and drives away like crazy, running over objects and people that get in his way. Diana uses a radio to channel her powers through speakers placed around the base, but Danny's block is powerful and he just drives away. Just then, Nix finds Danny's notebook and discovers that he used it to decipher the sentences from the photographs. Fine Lev Delrain turns out to be an anagram of Deer Valley Lane where Minnie is. Hours later, Danny arrives in Deer Valley where Carl and Thelma greet him with guns drawn. After making sure Danny remembers everything, they take him indoors, where Danny finds an adult Minnie playing dominoes. Her father and daughter embrace again, and suddenly Minnie announces that her mother is here. Meanwhile, division agents approach by helicopter, and a quick search of the system reveals that the Deer Valley Ranch belongs to Danny's adoptive parents, Thelma and Carl. Upon landing, Thelma and Carl fire warning shots and speak to Diana as if they know each other, although Diana remembers neither of them. Delrain is unwilling to cooperate and orders his men to shoot them. Desperate to find her daughter, Diana rushes to her body to tell her story before she dies. At that moment, Danny comes out and the woman she loves doesn't want that kind of life for her daughter, which means Diana is Division's pawn. Then Minnie came out and hugged her mother and said she was proud to be home. Diana is confused and Minnie reveals it was all a plan to escape her division. Delrain, realizing that this is not real, begins to feel horrified and shoots the house, shattering her illusions. Minnie uses her own powers to have Nix shoot all the other agents dead. A few people who try to fight back are controlled by Danny and end things on their own instead. Suddenly the illusion ends and Delrain finds them on a fake set near the hills. Carl and Thelma are alive and shoot all the remaining agents. Meanwhile, Minnie contacts her mother to repair her memory. Diana finds herself tied to her chair with a man in a red mask, and Diana changes her mind while ignoring her cries for her help. Diana opens her eyes and is shocked by her newfound memories, and when Delrain tries to shoot Diana dead, Minnie uses her powers to tell Diana to do her thing instead of her. Force it to end. Then Danny tells the whole story. From the moment Minnie was born, they knew she was very powerful. Realizing that she was very dangerous and could be used in warfare, the division began training her. Danny and Diana didn't want that future, but they also knew the division would never let them go, so they planned to flee the division forever. Minnie went into hiding with her grandparents while her parents erased her own memories so she could practice her powers until she was strong enough to fight the division. Danny writes clues about himself on the photo and wears a red mask to falsify Diana's memories, making her believe she was on the side of division. That way she might one day make them come here and kill them to end things for good. The family hugs and celebrates being finally freed from the division. The three fly off in a helicopter with Thelma, but Carl says he will stay behind to clean up. However, when they are gone, It turns out that the dead Delrain on the ground was actually Carl, and the living Carl was Delrain from the beginning. Now he can escape and come up with a new plan to capture Minnie. End. Conclusion. In a stunning revelation, the complex web of deception unraveled as Danny, Diana, and Minnie expose the truth about their past, the sinister division, and their elaborate plan to break free. However, the shocking twist at the end with Delrain's escape and the potential threat to Minnie's safety leaves us hanging on the precipice of an even more intense and uncertain future. Thanks again from Movies Recapped. If you enjoyed this movie recap, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating narratives and engaging content. Please also comment on your thoughts and so I know you subscribed and I will reply back to you. Thanks again from Movies Recapped. If you enjoyed this movie recap, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating narratives and engaging content. Please also comment on your thoughts and so I know you subscribed and I will reply back to you.